For months, Can Yaman had been everywhere, on magazine covers, at red carpets, in viral fan photos from Madrid to Rome. And yet, about one specific incident, he said nothing. No interviews. No statements. No social media clarification. Just silence. Fans noticed it immediately. Because this time, the rumors weren't small. They weren't about a hairstyle change or a new project. They were about his reputation, his career, and a moment that almost derailed everything. Tabloids wrote headlines that spread like wildfire. What really happened that night? The incident that shocked the industry. Why Can Yaman went silent? Behind the scenes, insiders whispered that Can was advised not to speak. Publicists warned him. Managers suggested waiting until the storm passed. But the storm didn't pass. Instead, it grew. Clips were cut out of context. Old interviews were replayed with new interpretations. Every neutral gesture was turned into proof of something darker. And the worst part? Can Yaman watched all of this unfold, without responding. Until now. Last night, during a low-key but highly anticipated appearance on an international talk show, something changed. The host asked a simple question, not aggressive, not accusatory. So, Can, there's been a lot of talk. A lot of speculation. Why did you choose to stay silent for so long? For a few seconds, he didn't answer. The studio went quiet. You could see it in his eyes. This wasn't just another PR moment. This was personal. He took a deep breath. And for the first time, he spoke openly about the truth behind the incident that everyone thought they already understood. I stayed silent, Can said slowly, because I was told the truth wouldn't matter. That single sentence hit harder than any headline. He explained that when the first news broke, it was framed in a way that painted him as careless, even reckless. What the public didn't see was the full context, what led up to that moment, what actually happened behind closed doors, and how quickly a narrative can form when millions of people are watching. There were cameras, he said. There were edits. And then there was a story that wasn't mine. Fans immediately flooded social media with reactions. Some felt guilty for believing the rumors. Others admitted they always suspected something was off. But Can wasn't done. He revealed that the silence took a toll on him mentally. You start questioning yourself, he admitted. Not because you did something wrong, but because you realize how easily your image can be shaped by others. For the first time, viewers weren't seeing the confident, untouchable star. They were seeing a man who had been carrying the weight of public judgment quietly. And then came the line that no one expected. There's a part of this story no one ever reported. And that part changes everything. The host leaned forward. The audience held their breath. Because whatever Can Yaman was about to reveal was about to rewrite the entire narrative. The part Can Yaman referred to as the part no one ever told goes back to the very beginning of that night. The public thought they already knew the story. According to the tabloids, it was a simple situation. A sudden moment, a misunderstood gesture, and then a scandal that exploded overnight. But the version Can shared was very different. No one talked about what happened before that moment, he explained. No one cared why I was there, who invited me, or where the tension really started. According to Can, he was present that night for what was supposed to be a professional meeting. Plans changed at the last minute. Unexpected people entered the room. The atmosphere shifted in a way no one could control. What later appeared in the media was just a few seconds of footage, taken out of context. And when you cut a story into a few seconds, he said, you can make anyone look like a villain. He described how a small misunderstanding quickly escalated because cameras were already rolling. Someone raised their voice. Another person stepped in. The situation was de-escalated within moments, but that calm never made it into the headlines. Instead, What circulated online was the most dramatic angle possible. Within hours, entertainment blogs framed the moment as proof that Can had lost control. Screenshots were shared. Short clips were looped on social media. And suddenly, a narrative was born, the star who couldn't handle pressure. Behind the scenes, Can says he was advised to stay quiet. Everyone around me said, "Don't react. It will fade," he recalled. But it didn't fade. It followed me. Offers slowed down. Meetings were postponed. People who once spoke to him freely became cautious. "That's when you realize," he said. "This isn't just gossip. This affects your real life." He admitted that there were nights he replayed the moment in his head, wondering if he could have acted differently, even though he knew the story the public believed wasn't the full truth. And the hardest part, Can added quietly, was knowing that the people who were actually there never spoke up. The host asked the question everyone was thinking. "So why speak now?" Can looked straight into the camera. "Because the truth doesn't disappear just because you stay silent," he said. "And some stories grow more dangerous the longer you let others tell them for you." The audience applauded, not because it was dramatic, but because it felt honest. But the biggest shock was yet to come. Can hinted that someone inside the industry had benefited from the scandal. Someone who allowed the narrative to spread because it served their own interests. "I won't name names," he said. "But not everyone who smiled at me that night was on my side." And just like that, the story turned from a simple misunderstanding into something much deeper. A story about image, power, and what really happens behind the spotlight. As Can Yaman continued to speak, it became clear that this story was never just about one misunderstood moment. It was about what happened after. When the cameras were off, when the headlines were already written, and when decisions were made quietly behind closed doors. "There's a side of this industry people don't like to talk about," Can said. "It's not always about talent or truth. Sometimes, it's about convenience." According to him, after the incident made the news, there were internal conversations that the public would never hear. Calls between producers. Messages between managers. Meetings where his name was suddenly discussed in a different tone. Not as the rising international star, but as of risk. "One producer told me, we'll wait until things calm down," Can revealed. But things never fully calm down when a narrative is already out there. He described how a project that was nearly confirmed was quietly put on hold. Another collaboration suddenly needed restructuring. No one officially blamed him. No one openly accused him. But the shift was obvious. "You feel it in the way people look at you," he said. "The warmth changes. The trust changes." What hurt the most, according to Can, was realizing that some of the people who could have clarified the truth chose not to. People who were present that night. People who knew the full context. They stayed silent because silence was easier for them, he said. And that silence cost me more than any rumor. For a moment, the confident public image of Can Yaman cracked. His voice didn't break. But the weight of what he was saying was unmistakable. This wasn't about drama. This was about disappointment. "There's a strange loneliness that comes with being misunderstood by millions of people," he admitted. "You can walk into a room full of fans and still feel alone, because the story they believe about you isn't really you." The host asked if there was a moment when he almost decided to speak earlier. "Yes," Can said. "There were many nights I wrote statements I never posted." He explained that every time he was about to speak, he was reminded of the risks. How one wrong word could be twisted. How defending yourself publicly can sometimes make the storm louder, not quieter. "So I chose silence," he said. "Not because I had nothing to say, but because I was afraid of saying the wrong thing." That fear followed him for months. But what finally pushed him to speak was not another headline or another rumor, it was a private moment. A message he received from someone he deeply respected, who told him, Your silence is letting others write your story. That line stayed with him. I realized I didn't want to be remembered through headlines I didn't write, Can said. I wanted people to hear my voice at least once, before they decide who I am. And with that, he looked straight into the camera again. I'm not perfect, he said. I've made mistakes in my life, like everyone. But the story that's been told about that night isn't the truth. The studio was silent. Not because of shock. But because for the first time, the truth felt human. And in that moment, Can Yaman wasn't just a celebrity breaking his silence. He was someone taking back control of his own narrative.